the African continent, that is. The first results in Nigeria's presidential elections have begun trickling in. Official results from the Ekiti state show a clear victory for the ruling party candidate Bola Tinubu. Around 90 million voters were eligible for Saturday's election, which is considered the most competitive since military rule. The poll went ahead mostly peacefully, with reports of isolated violence and delays. 3 frontrunners are competing for the presidency. Let's stay with election news. Soldiers were forced to intervene in Lagos after a group of men pretended to be electoral officials attacked a vote counting station. Eyewitnesses claim that the men attacked party agents with knives and sticks yesterday. The authorities are now appealing for calm.
Muslim boys, we don't know the outcome they entered this territory. They just came and started coming out with dagger and eating everybody that are Labour Party agents. They start eating them because some of them, even the one that was still bringing their results for us to collect, they were still eating everybody with stone, with dagger, with stick. And some got injured. So fortunately, when we saw the policeman, we were not able to do anything. I had to rush and enter in a house in one of the resort rooms, and I called for help to ask for soldiers to come.
All right, let's try and give you an update now on the vote counting in those Nigerian elections, and we're joined by Nigerian journalist David Hundeyin. David, good morning to you, and thank you very much for your time. Just give us your sense of what you are being told as regards the vote counting.
Right. So, as you know, during these elections, there was a new vote counting system deployed called the BVAS, that's the Bimodal Voter Accreditation System. And what this is basically a machine, a tech solution that uses biometric voter identification to prevent rigging, and it's supposed to upload results directly from polling centers to the central INEC server. So by all indications from the signed and authenticated result sheets from polling centers which have been made publicly available, and from all the exit polls that were done on the day of the election, or the 2 days of the election, Saturday and Sunday, there was actually a clear lead for the Labour Party candidate, Peter Obi. But for whatever reason, the results which were supposed to be uploaded from the BVAS to the central server were not uploaded, and instead, manual collation of results is what has been going on at the INEC centers. And somehow, in between when the initial batch of results started emerging from the results sheets, and now there's been this very mysterious turnaround in the voting results. So numbers that would not appear to be borne out by the data that was made initially available have suddenly started springing up out of nowhere for the ruling party candidate, Bola Tinubu. So you mentioned earlier in the report that it's now been announced that Tinubu has won Ekiti State by an overwhelming majority. What perhaps wasn't included in that report is that overwhelming majority, which was supposedly won in Ekiti State, is not supported by any of the data that was available. It's not supported by the pre-election polling. It's not supported by exit polling. And it's definitely not supported by the initial batch of result sheets and projections from those that emerged. So the Independent National Electoral Commission has a lot of questions to answer. There have been a number of reports of voter intimidation, thuggery, and compromisation of the local INEC officials, particularly in Lagos and Rivers State, which are two of the biggest population centers in the southern parts of Nigeria. And for whatever reason, these allegations, which have been made with video and audio evidence, have yet to be addressed in any way by the Independent National Electoral Commission. So there are a lot of questions to answer. I actually spoke to the Labour Party candidate, Peter Obi, yesterday, and he reiterated many of these concerns, and he made it clear that under no circumstances are he or the Labour Party going to accept the results that so far the Independent National Electoral Commission is trying to pass off really as authentic results, that these will be challenged using the data that has been gathered on the ground.
Yeah.
These will be challenged in the post-election tribunal and in court if necessary.
David, based on what you're saying, it does suggest that you are pointing to some possibility of vote rigging. On what would you base that on? Because the suggestion, or at least what usually happens, is that the party agents at each vote counting station will be stationed there, and they are there to authenticate whether the numbers coming out of that voting station are indeed legitimate. And add to that what the observer missions are saying. For example, we have the Commonwealth Observer Mission there led by our country's former President Thabo Mbeki. What are bodies like that saying so far?
So, as you rightly mentioned, there are party agents that authenticate the results coming out of every polling center, and the result sheets are authenticated by those party agents. They all sign on the result sheets. So it is those result sheets that this is based on, right? Because based on the data on those result sheets, there was a clear and incontrovertible early lead for Peter Obi, an overwhelming lead actually. So what was supposed to happen is, after those result sheets have been authenticated, the data on those result sheets is supposed to be recorded on the BVAS machine and uploaded immediately to the INEC server. That was in the Electoral Amendment Act of 2022. Instead, almost unanimously across the country, there was an excuse that was put forward by INEC that, their server is under attack and their staff on the ground don't have the right password to upload the data to the INEC server remotely from the polling centers. So their staff have to come in to the rack centers and manually upload data in places, obviously, where the party agents do not have access to. So which has defeated the entire point of BVAS, because the point of BVAS was, as soon as the voting is done, the party agents authenticate the numbers. These numbers are uploaded immediately to the INEC server, and they are viewable to the public, which makes it practically impossible to rig an election because it's open, it's transparent. That transparency has been completely circumvented, because instead of uploading the results remotely, which is what is stated in the Electoral Amendment Act, you then have these INEC officials then taking these machines secretly to the rack centers, the collation centers, and then manually uploading data all night in places where the general public, party agents, the candidates do not have access to. So which obviously then raises the point that what data is being entered, and then when the data that is being entered doesn't match the data that was on the result sheets, and by the way, these result sheets are for the most part now publicly accessible, it then raises the issue, what exactly took place there?
David?
And then with answer to the second question, which was what are the observers saying? Well, there have been a number of observers who have noted that in Lagos and in Rivers State especially, there has been sporadic violence. As you rightly said, for the most part across the country, the elections have gone by generally without too much incident. This isn't 2011 where there was like huge widespread electoral violence, so that's definitely a good thing. However, what I would be more concerned about if I were an international observer is what would happen if this vote, if the vote that is the result that is eventually announced by INEC doesn't tally with the data on the voting sheets, which are publicly accessible. What will then happen? Is there a possible specter of post-election violence? At this point, it's very difficult to say.
A critic listening to you and my conversation right now, David, is going to say, okay, we hear these concerns, let's call them that, coming from David. He's a journalist, but he's based all the way in the UK. How credible is the information that you are getting? Were you there on the ground on Saturday when the elections kicked off?
So, Yes, I am based. I am currently based in the UK. I had to flee Nigeria for my life in 2020. Just for context, so I had to claim asylum because of the work that I do in Nigeria. Now, you do not need to be on the ground to get access to the results sheets. At least three of the major parties, including the Labour Party, the ruling party, and the People's Democratic Party, all have IT situation rooms, all of which I have access to. And in these IT situation rooms, the result sheets from the polling centers, every party agent basically takes a snapshot of the result sheet and uploads it to their own central database. And I have access to all of these databases. So it's not hard to make an informed judgment based on data that is available. The data I have access to over here in London is the exact same data that someone in Lagos would have access to.
All right. Thank you very much for that update. That's Nigerian journalist David Hundeyin. He is based in London, in the UK at the moment, and as you've heard, he had to flee the country, his country Nigeria, because of the work that he does. So thanks indeed for that update. It's a story we're going